Did you know that Africa is bigger than the United States, Canada, and India combined? Africa covers an area larger than 11.7 million square miles. More than 15% of the world's total population lives there. But besides its massive size and population, you'd be amazed by the astounding mysteries its borders contain. It's set in 12 acres of private land in the indigenous forest of Nairobi in Kenya. The Giraffe Manor is one of Nairobi's most iconic buildings. The hotel has a staff of 60 to take care of your every need, with chefs on call to prepare your favorite meal. And whether it's breakfast in the sunroom or candlelit dinner in the cozy dining room, you can bet you'll have a long-necked companion or two. One of the most fascinating things about this place is its resident herd of giraffes. They visit every morning and evening, and you can see their long necks stretching into the windows looking for treats or hands.
Cooling on a couch, watching TV, go up, feeling nothing but lazy, feeling to somebody, nothing else to do, might as well go to the board and drop something brand new, feeling on the dice, throwing shit down, making me hard to the sound, about to stop, hungry then I'm up for the plug now, cause I found out you liking it. Don't you want it back? Baby. Don't you want it back? Don't you want it?
Welcome again, brothers and sisters, to another video from the Black Economic Network channel. My name is Neville Farkey, and I am the coordinator of the channel. I want to welcome and say thanks to you, brothers, sisters, and cousins of the other races that support our struggle for economic independence. I also want to say special thanks to the brothers and sisters who have been sending content for me to include in the episodes. I want to mention for this particular episode, I got content from two usual people, my good friend in Jamaica, who doesn't want me to mention his name, and from my other good friend, Brother Ozzy T in Trinidad. And in addition, I got content, the Marcus Garvey audio piece of Marcus Garvey, that little segment from Brother Codrick F. He has a farm I know in Amityville between Old Harbor and Spanish Town. Also from Dr. Monifa, sister who comes from near a place, a district near to Old Harbor. So this introduction is very brief. I am not going to even introduce the individual segments because I don't want the video to be longer than is absolutely necessary. And remember to subscribe, like, and share the video with your friends and relatives and colleagues. And basically the segments they have their own captions, or they don't need much introduction. Okay, so let's get into it.
All of us gathered here should never forget the famous admonition of the iconic Jamaican reggae star Peter Tosh, when he said, and I quote, "Don't care where you come from. As long as you're a black man, you're an African."
President of the Republic of Ghana.
feel about, I know you guys talk about it a lot, but I just wanted to bring it here about, diasporas moving here and, trying to fit into the continent and trying to, we come from the West and stuff like that, but a lot of us know, like, this is where we want to be for many different reasons, whatever your reason may be. How do you feel about, us trying to, like, migrate together and become one?
I think I will quote Marcus Garvey when he said Africa belongs to Africans at home and Africans abroad. So Africa belongs to all of us. Right. And it's time for us to claim what belongs to us. Yeah. Absolutely. So for me, seeing the African diaspora moving back to the continent is so exciting. I mean, I feel like the revolution is really happening because this has always been a dream of Marcus Garvey, but they couldn't come to pass. And knowing the fact that it's happening right now, I believe that wherever Marcus is, he's going to be excited in his grave. And people say I look like Marcus Garvey, so probably I'm actually doing the job of Marcus Garvey just to tell the diaspora that, hey, it's time to make Africa home again.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. And it feels like, I feel like when people watch you guys' channel, it makes them feel, even if they're like second guessing whether or not they should come on the continent, it makes them feel a level of comfort.
Yeah, I mean, we've been miseducated for so long. We've been educated to hate ourselves to the extent that African Americans or Africans living in the diaspora thinks that Africans don't like them, and Africans in here, we don't even know who an African American is. I think I should give you this video idea. Go to the street of Tanzania and then go and ask somebody who is a Black American or who is an African American. I tell you that 90% of the people will not know who an African American is, because in our history, they never taught us who an African American is. I mean, I had to travel abroad before I was able to see, oh, this is an African American, right? To the extent that we had slave castles in Ghana. I didn't even know that's where they kept slaves. You get what I mean? So it's more of educating ourselves, getting to understand each other, getting to know who we really represent, and also Africans learning their own history. Because if you don't know what happened in the past, you'll never know where you're going.
True.
Do you understand? So we're just one people. Let's love one another and take Africa to the world, man.
Yeah.
Who is the fastest self-made billionaire ever? While it took Warren Buffett 55 years to join the Billionaires Club, Jay Walker literally did it in less than a year. He launched Priceline.com during the dot-com bubble, and his net worth instantly jumped from zero to billions. But that wasn't sustainable, because when the bubble burst, his net worth crashed as well, while Buffett is still on the top of the list, and he doesn't seem to go anywhere anytime soon. And that's the kind of wealth you want to build. The game of money isn't easy. It's tough, competitive, and ruthless. And if you don't know the rules, you are doomed to fail. The problem with most people is that they might work super hard their entire lives, but end up poor at the end of the journey because they don't know how to let their money make even more money. In other words,
they don't know how to invest. Let's assume that you have been saving money and have an extra $1,000 in your bank account. That is already an achievement because nearly 70% of Americans don't even have an extra $1,000. So instead of spending it on another useless gadget or a pair of shoes that you will wear once and then keep in your wardrobe for many years before you finally throw it away, let's assume that you're going to invest that money. But the question is, how do you invest your first $1,000? Do you invest it in real estate or the stock market? What kind of stocks do you buy? Is $1,000 enough to start investing? We're going to answer all of these questions and many more. So give this video a thumbs up and let's get started. To understand what investing is and how does it works, consider this example. Let's say you worked so hard and saved $300,000. You can pay a visit to a Ferrari store and get yourself a luxurious car and let everyone know how successful are you. Or you can buy real estate and rent it out. Every month you will receive at least $2,000. If you decide that you no longer want to keep receiving the $2,000 paycheck every month, you can sell it and get back your initial investment. In fact, the value of your investment might even appreciate, so you will sell it for a higher price. And that's how money makes money. But you can't buy real estate for $1,000. That's not even enough for a down payment. However, that doesn't mean you can't invest that $1,000 elsewhere and let it grow. The easiest way is just to deposit it into a savings account and generate interest. But why would the bank pay you for keeping your money in the bank? Shouldn't they charge you instead? No. You see, the bank is going to take your money and loan it to someone else at a higher rate and would share with you a portion of that profit. That's how banks work in short. The only problem with this strategy is that interest on deposits account is so low that it doesn't worth it. The highest rate you probably can get is 0.8%, which means that if you invest $1,000 into a savings account, 12 months from now, you will receive an extra $8, which is extremely low because the Fed targets an inflation rate of 2 to 3%, which means if you're not getting at least 2 or 3%, over time, the real value of your $1,000 will depreciate, which means you can buy with it less goods every year. But why interest rates are so low on deposits account? Because interest rates in general are low this year since the pandemic forced the Fed to lower them to encourage everyone to borrow money and spend. A year or two from now, once we get out of this recession, the Fed will increase interest rates to 1 or 2 or even 3%, which means interest rates on savings accounts will rise as well. Your second option is to buy government bonds. A government bond is security that's issued by the government to raise money to support government spending. Say the government wants to build a school, but it doesn't have the money to do that, so it issues an IOU, a piece of paper that says whoever owns this security is owed this much of money plus interest by the US government. Of course, this is an oversimplified example, but that's the point in short. Government bonds are heavily influenced by interest rates. So, since interest rates are extremely low this year, government bond rates are less than 1%. But 2 years ago, when interest rates were high, government bonds rates were as high as 3%, which is not bad since the government bonds are the safest investment you can ever make. Any investment carries with it a certain level of risk. If you're loaning money to the US government, what are the chances that the US government will default on its loan? For the US government to go bankrupt, the entire US economy might have to fail. That's why US government bonds are considered the safest investment in the world. But if you want to make a higher return, let's say 10, 20 or 30%, then you have to consider investing in the stock market. For example, Amazon stock price increased by over 80% just this year. Google's stock price rose by almost 30%. Tesla's stock increased by 721%. Yes, you heard that right, 721%. Then the question is, why would anyone invest elsewhere when they can double or even triple their money in the stock market? The answer is risk. When it comes to government bonds, for example, there isn't much risk. In fact, it's risk-free to a certain extent. But when it comes to individual companies, there is a risk that the company might fail. It might report negative earnings. Pretty much any negative news can drive the stock price down. The company might release a product, and if the public doesn't like it, that can make some negative headlines, which can drive the price down. So, with higher returns comes more risk. Apple is a well-established company, and its chances to fail are way lower than Tesla, for example. But it also has less room to grow than Tesla. That's why Tesla grew by 721% this year, but Apple by just 70%. What you have to determine for yourself is how much risk you can take without going nuts. If that $1,000 is all that you have left, maybe risking it all isn't the wisest option, because if things turn south, you can end up losing most of it. So one way investors minimize the risk in the stock market is by investing in an index. The most famous one is the S&P 500, which tracks top 500 US companies. So an index fund would basically invest in these top 500 US companies. Some of these companies will definitely fail, but others will grow. Judging by historical data, the average return rate for the S&P 500 since the 1920s was around 10%. This means buying a share of these index funds means you're buying a tiny share in the top 500 US companies. My 3 top favorite index funds are VOO or Vanguard 500 Index Fund, QQQ, an index fund by Invesco, and Fidelity Zero Total Market Index Fund. All of them are great and invest in pretty much the exact same companies. But how do you buy shares in these index funds? I mean, where do you start? First, you need to find a broker, someone who is qualified to sell you stocks. In the past, it was always someone. You had to pick your phone and call him and ask him to sell you some shares. Remember the Wolf of Wall Street? He would spend his entire day calling people and try to sell them worthless stocks. But thank God we are in 2020 and things are much better and easier. Brokerage firms created apps so that you can buy shares from the comfort of your smartphone, such as Robinhood, Webull, and so on. All you have to do is that download one of these apps and sign up, and you can start investing right away. In fact, if you use the link below to open a Webull account, you will get 2 free stocks. Just a disclaimer, it's an affiliate link, but you're going to get your 2 free stocks. Isn't that amazing? That's a good way to start, I would say. Check the link in the description. I tried my best to make this video as simple as possible so that whoever wants to start investing can start right away. Often what happens is that you want to start investing, but you have a million questions and you start Googling this and that and get exhausted after some time, and then you just give up and try again a few months later maybe. So I try to answer all of your questions here in this short video. So if you have found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new around here, then subscribe and turn on your notifications.
Did not suffer and die to give me an education to slight, oppress, or discourage my people. Because whatsoever education I acquired out of their sacrifice of over 300 years, I shall use for the salvation of the 400 million black people of the world. And the day when I forsake my people, may God Almighty say there shall be no more life for you. I unequivocally rejected the racist assumption of much white American Christianity, namely that God had created the black man inferior and that he had intended Negroes to be a servant class, hewers of wood and drawers of water. Well, I predicated my view of man on the doctrine of Imago Dei. All men, regardless of color, are created in the image of God. Now, from this premise followed the equality of all men and the brotherhood of all men. The biblical injunction of Acts 17:26 reminds us that he created of one blood all nations of men that dwell on the face of the earth. I was most interested in brotherhood within his own race, because if Negroes are created in God's image and Negroes are black, then God must in some sense be black.
The tragedy of Nigeria began in 1986 when we did the structural adjustment program. When we were persuaded to devalue our currency every week for 32 years. When I went to school, and many of you are here, the Naira was $1.50. The Naira was almost £1 sterling. They came here, persuaded some brilliant men from Harvard and the World Bank that weekly devaluation was wonderful. 32 years of devaluing your currency until we hit 527. And they were still telling us that the Naira was still overvalued. That brought poverty, misery upon us. Then interest rates went to 30%. So nobody could build a factory, start a farm, produce anything, or create jobs. Because every time you bring in a shipload of rice, you also bring in a shipload of unemployment. Because you are transferring your wealth to sustain other economies. Somehow, Nigerians didn't notice it. So we became a nation of importers. Toothpicks. Toothpicks. Each year it cost us $18 million. Importing toothpicks. Tomato paste, $400 million. You talked about tomatoes now. One basket in town now is less than 2,000 naira. The farmers are losing money because the processors don't have enough funds to set up factories. They are going to do tomato paste. It's food-grade stainless steel. You can't just use anything because you'll be putting poison in people's stomachs. 2 factories have started off. I believe by the middle of next year, we can comfortably tell importers of tomato paste to stop. But when you do, you make enemies. Even the rice we're trying to reduce. We have enemies, heavy enemies, people who can kill if they have a chance, because you're spoiling their business. And let nobody take it lightly. These guys have seized this country's economy, they've taken us hostage, and they have no intention of giving up. Because this is a huge market, a very sweet market, and they have taken control. And I'm saying it because I have been in this business for 41 years and I can tell you some history. Abdullah Adamu is here. Import milk, sugar, toothpicks, toothpaste, handkerchiefs, pencils. We don't make. To cure Nigerians of that malady will take a while. It will take a strong government. That's the truth. And they are not happy that we're cutting down. When we cut down, they lose money there. So you see all sorts of publications. We're telling lies. We're not growing rice. We're trying to demoralize the local farmers and make sure that the economy fails. That's the story of imports. Now, I read a story recently in the newspapers. The French ambassador, the champagne ambassador in Nigeria, gave an article to The Guardian. He said Nigerians love life. We are the biggest consumers of champagne on planet Earth, more than the French who make it. There are parties you attend in some places where they only drink champagne. Of course, the individual is free to spend his money, but his money comes from Nigeria's commonwealth. So on imports, it will take a while for us to get used to local goods and accept that we should consume what we produce and produce what we want to consume. So I take your point. We have to take stern measures to cut down on imports because these young boys and girls who have no jobs today are not going to allow us to carry on enjoying life at their expense. They need jobs. They need jobs. They are children. They've graduated, they've come back home to begin a second childhood because there's no factory to employ them. And the ministries can't take any more. But somebody is making sure you fail when you want to produce at home.
suddenly you left me alone by myself.
No, this isn't an anti-Semitic video, it's an educational one, and we hope you'll learn something by the end. Throughout history, Jewish people have been perceived as being wealthy, but where did that rhetoric stem from? We know that Jewish people, like all people, have their wealthy, middle class, and their lower income group. So Aluxers, today we're going to delve deep into this thought process. Welcome to alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing out. Number 1. Judaism and wealth. Judaism doesn't cast poverty as a sign of righteousness, as other beliefs might. Instead, they believe each person should avoid poverty and be gainfully employed to earn their own living. This is a fundamental value that has led to a good work ethic and a personal responsibility for each person earning their own keep. Jewish people also believe in giving. They believe that 10 to 20% of wages should go toward religious and charitable causes. However, they don't believe in relying on charity to lift yourself up, and certainly not to become a burden on the community. Growing up with this kind of mindset makes for a solid foundation to see success as the only option. Number 2. European Jews couldn't own land. If you think anti-Semitism was only popularized in World War II, think again. Jewish people have had a tough history, including not being able to own land in Europe from as far back as the medieval times. But where there's a will, there's a way, so Jewish people found alternative ways to build their wealth outside of property owning. One of them being merchants and traders, industries to this day where they still have a big footprint in most countries. This created a safety net for Jewish communities because where their services were needed, they were safe. Number 3. Religious opportunity was taken. To Christians in the Middle Ages, charging interest was a sin. This prevented them from holding any type of financial job, leaving the opportunities in that field open to the Jewish community who did not see lending in the same way. Jewish people became prominent in money-lending businesses. The Jewish people's early success in this lucrative business was a forerunner for many of the stereotypes we hear today of Jewish people. Number 4. Opened the first banks. It was a hop and a skip from money lending to opening the first banks in Europe for the Jewish community. They could manage transactions, transfers, and day-to-day financial services, plus continue to lend money and charge interest with their strong background in finance. This was a much-needed service on a developing continent and helped to fuel further growth. But it wasn't all rosy. This success also led to jealousy, which fueled much of the anti-Semitic sentiment throughout the ages. Number 5. The most educated religious group. In 2016, the Pew Center released a study which listed Jewish people as the most educated religious group in the world. On average, the Jewish community receives 13.4 years of schooling. When it comes to post-secondary degrees, Jewish people hold 61% of the qualifications. What's more surprising is the vast difference between first and second most educated religions. Christians rank second most educated, but compared to the average of 13.4 years of schooling among Jewish people, Christians only rack up an average of 9.3 years at school. More credentials lead to a higher starting salary, and this immediately improves the financial status of Jewish people right out of university. Number 6. They look after one another. Perhaps it comes from a long history of being marginalized, or perhaps it's just inherent nature, but Jewish people have a deep pride in sharing their wealth to benefit their community. This mutual aid mentality is a part of their ethos and ensures that each member of the community is supported to enable them to succeed. If someone opens a new business, the community will rally around them to support it. If someone else falls on hard times, the community will try to help them out. Judaic law instructs that poor people are to be respected and protected. This strong focus on uplifting the whole community has meant that even shunned Jewish communities have managed to survive the hardest times by investing in one another. The idea of wealth is not just to accumulate wealth, which is seen as vanity. Wealth is seen as a means to an end to grow a community. It is highly frowned upon to not give generously to the social and spiritual needs of the community. Number 7. Their religion teaches good business practices. The Torah and many Jewish philosophers, leaders, and writers have made it clear how Jewish businesses must operate. According to these teachings, there's absolutely no room for dishonest practices. Any deception, collusion, or price fixing against a consumer is known as ona'ah, which translated means oppression. Fleecing the consumer is seen as an oppression of their freedom. Knowing that you're going into business with someone who's inspired to good ethics by a higher power makes Jewish business people a very attractive business partner to many. Number 8. Resilience and perseverance are second nature. Despite extreme challenges, Jewish people have shown resilience throughout. It's woven into their fabric, and the focus remains on the spiritual and practical. With this resilience and perseverance, giving up is not an option. When things go wrong in business, which happens, there's no self-pity, but an attitude of, shit happens, let's figure out how to fix it. As author of The Money Code, Become a Millionaire with the Ancient Jewish Code, H.W. Charles wrote, "The Jews are known for their perseverance, and this is what helps them achieve their goals. Perseverance means continuous persistence in a course of action, a purpose, in spite of difficulties, obstacles, or discouragement."